Everybody else it seemed like they just now catching up. We've been talking about this for months. How long have we been talking about the potential UAW strikes? Months now, right? Way before it happened, I already predicted everything that was going to play out. I told y'all that Shawn Fain, the UAW president, was going to be playing hardball, right? I've even laid off of it for a couple of sessions in order to see what was going to happen because I didn't even want to continue to report on it every day because it was more of the same. But you know what's been happening? They've been rolling out strikes slowly but surely to all of the other plants. When they started off with just 3, now they're rolling it out to every single city, and there's a residual effect that come along with it. Make sure y'all get a likes up. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Let's see what's happening. I'm going to bring y'all up to speed on what's happening. And I also want to get Patrick Bet-David's take on what's going on with the UAW auto strike.
Both President Biden and former President Trump will travel to Michigan this week in support of UAW union members whose strike against the big 3 automakers now is in its 2nd week. NBC's Jesse Kirsch is outside a General Motors plant in Pontiac, Michigan. Jesse, good morning. What's the latest there?
Willie, good morning. Still no word on
Fashion, women, and sports. I'm going to be reading that super chat shortly. Thank you, my friend.
deals, but from its last update, the UAW made clear that Ford appears to be leading the pack. The union saying it has made, quote, real progress with Ford on issues including the right to strike over plant closures and cost of living adjustments. Conversely, the UAW calling out GM and Stellantis for a lack of progress. And so now the union has specifically against those 2 companies expanded its strike to all parts distribution facilities across the country. What does that mean?
That's crazy. You know, to think that an organization of workers have the type of power to say, we don't really like the progress that we're making with y'all, and we're going to be able to expand this strike across all of your distribution centers, and we're going to cripple your company. I just can't fathom it. I can't fathom being a shareholder of a company that's being taken hostage by the workers. Whew. I just can't. It just doesn't resonate with me. Shout out to King, Coach King Rod. I appreciate you. I'm definitely going to be reading that super chat shortly. Thank you, my friend. I just can't fathom it. Also, what's really interesting is that if you look at the different CEOs, Ford CEO and Stellantis CEO are both men, but GM, which is largely being considered the toughest of the 3, is being ran by Mary Barra. And Elon Musk is just laughing all the way to the bank. I increased my position in Tesla today. I scheduled it ahead of time. January Man says UAW is going to win, Anton, like it or not. Are they? Do you really consider it a win? I'll break it down for you. Don't worry. Let's continue to read what's going on.
For you at home. If you need to get your car fixed, it could take longer to get a repair depending on what parts you need. One dealership group telling me, for example, that an engine could be harder to come by as long as a strike drags on at parts distribution facilities. We've heard from both GM and Stellantis. I'm going to read you portions of their statements. GM accusing union leadership of manipulating the bargaining process for their own personal agendas. Stellantis writing, we question whether the union's leadership has ever had an interest in reaching an agreement in a timely manner. Ford saying there is more work to be done. And all of this comes as President Biden, who claims to be the most pro-union president, is set to walk the picket line, join the picket line in Michigan on Tuesday. And then just...
And I don't, listen, when it comes to politics, it's all a finesse. All politics is sales. That's all it is. He's going to go over there and he's going to walk the picket line. And you know why he's going to go over there and he's going to walk the picket line? Because he wants the UAW and unions to endorse him for president of the United States of America for the upcoming election. I don't believe for one second that Biden is truly, and this is just my opinion, this is not a fact, I don't believe for one second that Biden is truly pro-union. I don't believe that any politician, maybe outside of Bernie Sanders, I give it to Bernie Sanders, feel the burn, seeing him at the airport over the past weekend or over the past week. I don't believe that any of these people are pro-union except for maybe a Bernie Sanders. Maybe. But he's going to be out there walking the picket line so that he can get up and receive an endorsement for the UAW. I just honestly believe that's why he's going to be out there.
Hours later, former President Donald Trump is expected to speak to workers in this state. Both candidates clearly reaching out to voters in what could be a crucial battleground come 2024. Willie.
Yes, some presidential.
Now I want to bring over Patrick Bet-David's take on it because I seen that he decided to drop a video as a result of it. I want to get his perspective. I have not seen his video yet, so haven't had a chance to see his video yet because I believe it dropped this morning. But I'm interested in seeing what Patrick Bet-David has to say about the strike.
It seems like this is a season where everybody's going on a strike. We know what's going on with Writers and Actors Guild. We saw what UPS got, big negotiation.
And before we get into Patrick Bet-David, somebody in the chat said the Writers Guild and the movie people, they finally came to an agreement. I was wondering when they was going to come to an agreement or whether they was going to let artificial intelligence and ChatGPT write all of the scripts, because it seemed like they was just out here going broke and they wasn't going nowhere. But we'll get into that in a minute.
And now the union auto workers, 13,000 United Auto Workers went on a strike after their union leaders couldn't bridge a massive gap between themselves and the three top automakers in America. We're talking GM, Ford, and Stellantis, aka Chrysler. A massive gap. Here's what it looks like. GM and Ford offered 20% increase in their salary, and Stellantis offered 17.5%. Guess what the union leaders asked for? No, we want a 36% increase. Studies are showing right now that
actually they had wanted originally 46%, and then they wanted it close to 40%. But obviously they used that as a bargaining chip along with 32-hour work weeks. All right. Here's the caveat. They also wanted 32-hour work weeks, up to 46% pay raises, and they wanted cost of living adjustments, and they wanted bonuses that came with performances of the company, and so many other things. So I'm going to just give y'all the real insight as he talks about it, because I know he's just going through the cliff notes.
That this could cost the economy billions of dollars every day while they're on a strike. And on top of that, 50,000 jobs. It is a mess, folks. But I think they watch what's going on with the strike with UPS, and they said, hey, maybe we can get paid. We're going to talk about that today. So if you get value out of this.
And that's one of the reasons why, let me add another caveat. One of the reasons why it takes so long for them to start negotiating, and then it comes all the way down into the point to where they have a strike, is because the UAW wanted to see what was going to happen with the Teamsters Union with UPS. Because now they can use that as a bargaining chip, and they can say, well, the drivers with overtime is making close to $170,000 at year 5. In year 4, year 5 of the UPS bargaining agreement, which they not really understanding that you're always going to need delivery services and logistics. This is why competition is good. This is why it's good to not have a monopoly, because when people need something, they can't just automatically pass those costs over to the consumers when they have another option to be able to ship goods and services. So if Amazon is now driving the costs out by now having electric vehicles, for example, and they can also leverage the Amazon Web Services in order to substitute for the cost that's associated with how it is that they're going to deliver packages, and then they can have individual contractors. Listen, let me break it down for you like this, right? UPS bargain, Teamsters bargain on the behalf of UPS in order for drivers and other people that work there to continue to get this raise, right? Now, on the other side, Amazon said, we don't even want y'all to be employees, so it's nothing to bargain for. There's no reason for y'all to unionize. We want you to have your own business. You guys are individual contractors that then have an agreement to be able to deliver on behalf of Amazon and use Amazon branded web services and Amazon trucks and Amazon equipment. And we just going to set it all up for you in order for it to be easier for you. But I also just want you to just be an independent contractor. You don't actually work for the company. So if you decide not to do it, we can always find another you, because we just going to get another contractor in here to do the things that you were unwilling to do. And that's why the turnover is so high. Two different business philosophies, also keeping in check the cost of goods and services and shipping, which then increases competition and then drives down the cost of doing business depending on what it is that you're doing from a financial perspective. So Amazon's seen this coming a long time ago. They union busters. They going against the union. As a matter of fact, Amazon has so much turnover in their warehouses that they then are looking for independent contractors. You even see people delivering out of their cars sometimes, or they'll go and rent a U-Haul in order to get the packages in the back of it in order for them to go ahead and deliver their packages. Amazon drives out the cost, the total cost for them to be able to ship goods and services, because now they don't have the total compensation package, not just based off of how much you pay the worker, but healthcare coverage, insurance, benefits. All of that is now passed on over into you as a small business owner that then say, yeah, I'm busting down the bag. I got my own business. Right? This is why competition is good, is because even though you have inflation that is increasing the cost of doing business, you also can drive out costs because it then forces you to be competitive. Conversely, when you see what's happening over here in the UAW, it's completely different, right? Because we always gonna have competition, but because all automakers aren't unionized, it's the same thing that's playing out. The total compensation package that's happening over in Tesla, $45 per vehicle, is much different than $100+ per vehicle that the UAW is seeking, close to $110 per vehicle that it's going to cost them to be able to continue to do business, while people are still having a conversation about what it's going to cost them in order to purchase a vehicle. Price is playing a role and a factor, because you're not Porsche, you're not Lamborghini, you're not Ferrari. You can't just demand $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for a car and then be able to pass that over into the consumer because you don't have the brand recognition of them to be able to raise the prices that much. A Cadillac, a Lincoln ain't going to go for that same amount of money, right? And so then it becomes a problem, because now the big three, the big Detroit three, have to compete against other automakers who have all of their plants down south, who refuse to unionize, but it's still incentivized for them to continue to compete against them with price and all of the incentives that go along with it, right? But let me get over to Patrick Bet-David, because you know me, I'm passionate about this. I look at everything from a business perspective. These are the things that I research on a regular basis in order to make sure that I'm investing, or I can give you insight on how it is that you're supposed to invest. Make sure you tap into that video on the Patreon are the things that you look for the most. The 8 things that I look for when I'm looking to invest in a company, those are the basic things, and then it's more that needs to be had as far as a conversation with regard to it. But let me continue to hear what Patrick Bet-David has to say.
This video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let's get right into it. So what's really happening? These 13,000 auto workers go on a strike. The strike began at a General Motors assembly plant in Wentzville, Missouri, a Ford factory in Wayne, Michigan, near Detroit, and a Stellantis Jeep plant in Toledo, Ohio. It is the first time in the union's 88-year history that these 3 different companies were targeted simultaneously. So what are the union's demands? As I told you earlier, they want a 36% wage increase over 4 years. The union is also asking restoration of cost of living pay raises and end to varying tiers of wages for factory job. And you ready? On top of that, they want to work only 4 days. They want to work 32 hours a week, but they want to get paid at 40 hours a week is what they're asking for. And by the way, Bernie Sanders just said yesterday, we ought to consider going to a 4-week model. That's what we ought to be thinking about doing. So guess what this...
Less work, more money, crippling the auto industry itself, hampering competition. Meanwhile, it's a global game. It's not just a game that's happening in the United States of America. Let's continue.
Union is asking for exactly that. And on top of that, the restoration of traditional defined benefit pensions for new hires who now receive only 401k style retirement plans, pension increases for retirees, and other items. So what are the automakers' position? GM and Ford, as I said earlier, offered 20% increase. Stellantis, Jeep, Chrysler offered 17.5% increase. Automakers say they're facing unprecedented demands as they develop and build new electric vehicles, while at the same time making gas-powered cars, SUVs, and trucks to pay the bills. They're worried labor costs will rise so much that they'll have to price their cars above those sold by foreign automakers with U.S. factories, which means who's going to be paying a price for that? You, the person.
Have I not been telling y'all this for months? Have I not been literally breaking this down for you guys for months, as far as the costs are then going to be passed on to the consumers, which then is going to drive the companies out of business? And they think that they won now, but then they're not going to win when they start to get laid off, and then no future work comes over there. Don't y'all realize that the reason why they got rid of cars from being sold from the big 3 largely, or they moved manufacturing over to other countries, including Mexico, is because of the cost of doing business, then drove out the profitability of being able to make cars in the United States of America in the first place. The cost of doing business, the cost of having it manufactured here, then put them at a negative, and they couldn't even manufacture it profitably unless they did it over in another country.
Buying the car. So now, what are the potential impacts of the strike? The strike could push vehicle prices higher and strain on the economy, already bruised by inflation. Also, walkouts may even become a factor in next year's presidential election, testing Joe Biden's commitment, because he said, no presidential candidate has ever been more pro-union than me. So this could pressure President Biden to come out and have to defend these union leaders. The strike could also last longer than previous work stoppages, such as a 40-day strike against GM in 2019. You ever wonder why Jamie Dimon, CEO of Chase, has a $900 million art collection, or Steve Cohen, $1.1 billion art collection, or Microsoft has nearly $1 billion collection? The company, 5,000 art pieces in 180 different locations worldwide. Why? Because billionaires and millionaires understand one of the ways to hedge against inflation, money being printed, market crash, interest rates, is to buy non-duplicatable assets, and one of them is art, fine arts. And that's
okay. I'm sensing a pitch right here. Hold on, let me get over into a completely different thing. All right.
Been happening. Drew Barrymore wanted to bring back her show. She got destroyed by fans. Bill Maher was going to bring back. He got destroyed by fans. Imagine how long these guys haven't been working. That started in May. It's September already. That's a long time. Then you got UPS. Now you got this to be looking at. So we looked at it and said, hey, are numbers for unions, number of members for union increasing, meaning are people wanting more union?
Nope. The union is literally dying, and that's what people don't understand. The union has been dying, and the way in which the union are trying to grow is that they're trying to use and leverage these talks and the fact that hey, we going over here and we getting all of these deals for union members and so on and so forth. But then other plants and other places are saying, listen, we got job security. We straight over here. We've been living a good life. Our company treats us well. Why would we unionize? So the union is trying to leverage the contracts that they then negotiate or the hardball that they plan with these companies in order to negotiate and say, hey, listen, y'all need to unionize over there and y'all need to unionize over there. Because the amount of American workers that are working in unions are dwindling down more and more, and they're getting laid off more and more. The amount of people that they had inside of these plants versus now is a fraction of what it used to be. And so in order for the union to grow and to continue to collect dues, they're going to try to unionize other places, but they haven't been able to do so. So as a result, the union hasn't been able to grow. They increase union dues, but they haven't been able to grow. But that's their strategy, not to continue to increase the jobs here in America, but then to try to unionize other places that don't even want them in there. That's the goal.
In private sector, they want to get away from unions. Here's what the numbers look like if you look at from 1972 till today. 1972, 24.2% of private sector memberships, they had unions. Today, 6%. You know what America's saying? We don't like the union private sector. Keep it in the public, but stay away from it in the private sector. And if you like union, go work for the public sector, not the private sector. Okay, so what is the impact on America? Because when you think about these three automakers, Ford, GM, and Chrysler or Stellantis, what percentage of the cars in America do they produce? 40%. That's why this is a big deal. The strike is expected to lead to production cuts at the big three automakers, which could lead to job losses. The strike is also expected to disrupt the supply chain for the automotive industry, which could lead to higher prices for cars and trucks. Now, here's also why this is bad news. Do you remember during COVID what was going on with used car prices? It's a $20,000 car selling for $38,000. What's going on over here? Because they couldn't find the chips. Do you remember sometimes even used car prices were selling more than new car prices? Some people are selling their cars. Look at the chart right here. This is what it tells us on what's happened with used car prices from 1960 to today. Okay, if you look at the chart to the top right, that's during COVID. It's not as if prices are already skyrocketing. Every other article you read, what is the average car payment? It's the most it's ever been in history in America. On top of that, add the strike with a 36% demand that they're asking for, not realizing who's going to pay the price for it. The consumer, you. So now, who is UAW? Who is the United Auto Workers? It's a union that was founded.
All right, we know all about this. Basically, Patrick Bet-David seems to be in a space to where he is not necessarily for unions, and he's basically breaking down the idea that the cost is going to be passed over into the consumer. And you guys need to be very, very careful what you ask for, because if you're not just asking for what's in the best interest of both you and the company, during the negotiation process, the best way to solve for it is always to ask the question of, how can you both benefit, right? If somebody comes to me and they say, Anton, I want to do business with you, or Anton, I want to promote on your show, or Anton, I want you to come on my platform, or Anton, I want you to do this, I always say, okay, well, let me see how I can add value into you first, because I'm looking to build a relationship and not necessarily just do business one time, right? If this can't be beneficial to both you and me, and if it's just becoming a money grab for me, then it's going to be a short-term, short-lived idea. And so I would rather you come back to me with something that's going to be conducive for both of us, instead of me just pitching you one time and it be the end of that conversation, right? And so that's the approach that I believe that the union should have took, not the hardball approach, because I think that long-term, long after Shawn Fain gets out of office, out of UAW presidency, is going to be a residual effect that is going to negatively affect the union across the board. That's just my personal opinion.